welcome to Chiltern Heritage Orchards. Okay, so we're looking really at how we protect the trees from the sheep and what the sheep do here, which is a lot. Main thing we have to do is make sure the sheep can't push the trees over. So I use a 16mm rebar pushed a couple of feet into the ground, about 60 centimetres, and that gives me enough strength. You see that? They can push against it, they won't push that over. And that will last probably 100 years, and you can reuse them. So they're very long lasting. The mesh that we're doing today, part of that's the voles, which I've explained before, but there's also what goes on above ground. And this piece of mesh is really vital. As you can see on that tree, we've got green guards. Those guards are brilliant. They keep the wind to a minimum, but they let the light through, the air through, and the trees love them. But they don't really keep out sheep, so we have to give them additional protection, because the sheep really just want the grass. They're not interested in the bark unless they've got nothing else. What we're really having to do today is plant these trees in March, which is not really ideal. It would be nice to put them in November. It would have the whole of the winter to grow. Now they're just coming into bud. They're okay, it's cool with the weather, but we need more rain, I think, and as long as the rain comes in April, we'll be fine. The grazing's going to help, because that's going to cut the grass right back and it's going to help the trees establish. So we'll look at what we're really doing here. First thing we need to do is to put the mesh on, which is always important because this is green mesh. So what I do, cut this to 1.5 metres high, about 5 foot, and then using the mesh we protect the tree. Important thing is to roll the mesh up first, put the wire through like that. I use green coated wire, about 2.5mm green coated wire, which lasts a very long time, but it's easy to undo. And you have to take these mesh off occasionally to cut back the rootstocks, or sometimes if you need to cut the feathers back or just get at the trees. So they're all cut ready. This tree's going to be planted shortly, so we're nearly ready. I'll leave that to one side and just talk a bit about what goes on in the soil. The sheep not only cut the grass down, they also improve the soil. The soil's made up of 4 key components. You can see them here. Lovely crumbly soil. The first component is clay, silt or sand, what we call the minerals. The minerals are very important. If the balance is correct and there's an equal amount of each, we would probably call that a medium loam, which is pretty much what this is. It's very good quality brown earth soil, perfect for growing fruit trees in. It's got a pH probably varying between 6.5, 6.8. That's important. That makes sure the nutrients are available, makes sure that whatever we put in is available in the right form, suits the fungi, suits the bacteria that we're so reliant on here. The sheep have a big impact. The second important part of soil is the organic component. That really makes up the vital part of how we grow our fruit here. The sheep really help that. First of all, they add their manure, which you'll see around. That gradually degrades and it releases 2 things really. It releases nitrogen in a very available form, urea, but it also provides a lot of humates, folic acid, all sorts of proteins, all sorts of breakdown products, which are really important for the fungi and then the bacteria later on. So from their manure, we gain quite a lot of nutrient that was locked up in the grass and wasn't available to the trees. So suddenly now it's available. The organic material builds up in the soil through a slow process of degradation to form humified material. That humified material is absolutely vital in the story here. That's really at the heart of organic growing. If you haven't got that, you're not going to have a good soil. So the second component, the humus or the humified material and the humates, make up a very, very complex, incredibly complex food source, and also store a lot of nutrients and make them available gradually to the trees. So they do a huge amount of work. Physically, they break up the soil. So that second component builds up very slowly, and importantly, it contains a lot of carbon. It stores carbon and provides a really important carbon sink from the atmosphere. This short-term intensive grazing that we use here is one of the best ways to remove CO2 from the environment. So our sheep that are working so hard for us for a short time, maybe 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks, twice a year, now in March and again at the end of November, they will really contribute to the carbon storage in the soil. They don't deplete the soil, they really improve it. And that makes the third component very available, and that's air. Lots of oxygen containing loads of nitrogen gas, freely available to the fungi and the bacteria. The nitrogen fixing bacteria in the soil, the azotobacter grab that nitrogen and then pass it through the system to the trees. That's where most of the nitrogen for the trees actually comes from, is the nitrogen fixed from the soil. Some comes from the urea, but a lot comes from the soil, very slowly dripped in gradually into the tree, keeps them very healthy. That oxygen is absolutely vital, but part of the soil is anaerobic, and that's important too. We don't want too much oxygen, we don't want to oxidize the soil. That makes everything unavailable. And the fourth component is water, and the water in this soil is really held in two ways. One, in the air spaces is little droplets, capillary water, and secondly, as stored water in the clay and the humus material. That water is slowly available, hygroscopic water, gradually taken up into the plants over the long term. Also, we have incredibly good drainage here. It's rained heavily overnight. You wouldn't realise that. This soil is perfect for planting. We can walk on it because we've got this continuous grassland. If you didn't have that, this would be a quagmire. So you've got very good drainage, very good water systems here. We protect the soil, we don't leave it bare, and the sheep are really helping us. But the price is we have to put a bit of work in at the start. Okay, so that's why we have sheep in the orchard. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.